What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best poison builds in Exile 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the best setups. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both leveling and endgame. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This is an amazing, low-budget endgame build that pretty much just runs insanely fast and throws out poisonous concoctions at your enemies, which spreads through hundreds of targets and destroys them in split seconds. The more monsters, the higher our poison buildup gets, so we don't have to worry about no rotations or the perfect damage uptime, as our automatic poison scaling does all of this by itself. On top of this, specifically for endgame, we are going to be using the Chaos Inoculation to become immune to chaos damage, and then scale the energy shield as our defense. So if you want to zoom through the content in few seconds and destroy everything standing in our way, then this is it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class, I have chosen to go with the Ranger and our ascendancy is the Pathfinder. Then for the first skill we have the Poisonous Concoction with the support gems such as the Scatter Shot, Chaos Infusion, Close Combat, Chaos Mastery, and the Deadly Poison. Then second we get Divine Arrow with the Fawn of Rage, Fawn of Mana, and Martial Tempo. Then next we got the Despair with the Heightened Curse. Next we have Contagion with the Chaotic Freeze, Magnified Effect, Arcane Tempo, and Mobility. Next up we have the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Herbalism. Next we got the Grim Feast with no support gem. Then next we have the Eye of Winter with the Withering Touch, Unleash, Persistence, and Inspiration. And finally for the last one we are using the Wind Dancer with the Blind and Maim. As you can see, most of this setup is structured around using the Poisonous Concoction to delete huge amount of enemies in few seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, and then go like this while taking these 4. So Blur, Combat Alchemy, Honed Instincts, and the Clean Shot. Then next we keep on going until this point, and then also grab all of these. So Master Fletching, Stacking Toxins, Lasting Toxins, Escape Velocity, and the Freedom of Movement. Then from here we want to circle back a little and take this one node called the Crippling Toxins. Then afterwards we now go like this and then take the right, and from here just keep on going while also taking the Leeching Toxins and the Kite Runner. And then from this point you can unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to get Brew Concoction, as this gives you the option to pick the Poisonous Concoction that provides us with our main skill and the core of our build. Then second we get the Contagious Contamination, which mostly saves us from having to run the Herald of the Plague, which costs about 30 spirit. Then third we get the Overwhelming Toxicity, which doubles our poison damage assuming that we can keep up with our poison stacks. And then finally for the last one we got the Traveler's Wisdom, which gives us 6 extra passive nodes. This might not sound like much, but at the endgame we can see a huge impact, especially if we spend them on more energy shields. So feel free to use the exact same path as I have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website, and this should make it easier for you to follow the tree. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and this build will benefit a lot from a high pack size, so that our poison can spread through and use the Contagious Contamination. Endgame activities with bunch of monsters like the Breach is great for our build. So then when we start we wanna first of all go to the left side and get all of these nodes. Then now go to the right and get all of these nodes as well. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this we have even more passives, which order in which you unlock them doesn't really matter. So this is again up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our breach setup. Now in the next part we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Widow Whale with as much quiver effect as possible, so at least 220% is highly recommended, as this makes you hit 300% breakpoint with alpha nodes on the passive skill tree. However, if you are going full solo and you don't have a Widow Whale, then you won't use any bow that has a plus levels of all projectile skills, or pretty much anything else that would increase our DPS. On top of this, we also are using an offhand called the Fire Quiver, and the most powerful thing on this one is increased damage with the bow skills. However, I've heard that the developers might nerf it soon, so if that happens, then look for stats to plus levels of all projectile skills and more dexterity. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara, and here pretty much we wanna get as much energy shield as possible. Also, max life and intelligence are useful too. Then for the chest we have the Ghost Wrath. This will convert part of your life to the energy shield. This will apply before the Chaos Inoculation node, and will give us pretty much as much energy shield as other body armor. However, if you can afford this, then for the budget versions, try to look for anything similar, with a high evasion and energy shield. Then for the belt we have the Fine Belt with a faster flask recovery, max life, max mana, more charm slots and lightning resistance. However, if you don't use the Ghost Wrath, then the max life is a useless stat. So in that case, go with more evasion. Then for gloves we got the Advanced Spiral Warps, and here also we want to go with as much evasion and energy shield as possible. On top of this is a good place to get free resistance like Chaos and Fire. Then for boots we're using Advanced Silk Slippers, and here the biggest priority is as much movement speed as possible, while also getting all the resistances and evasion or max energy shield. Then for the first ring we got the Prismatic Ring, with percentage to all elemental resistances. And for bonus stats we want accuracy, max life, strength and lightning resistance. While for the second one we have the Sapphire Ring with a cold resistance. And for more we got evasion, max life and fire resistance. And then finally for the amulet we have the Solar Amulet, which gives us more spirit. This is the hardest piece of the gear to get perfected, and after you finish maximizing your quiver, this should be the next place where to invest most of your time into. And for stats we want max energy shield, max life, levels of all projectile skills, more strength and intelligence. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And as you can see from the gameplay, this is one of the easiest and simplest builds in the game. So while running around in a map, you should not be using anything more than just the poisonous concoction. Rare monsters will die very fast because of the poison that gets spread through them from the contamination passive. However, in a situation where the pack size is high, like in the breaches, you then want to use the contagion skill to spread poison in an even bigger area than contagious contamination does by itself. And then second for bossing. This time we want to start with a couple of fine arrows before the boss becomes targetable. Then activate Despair. Then afterwards use Contagion to enable the freezing boss, and finally use Eye of Winter for massive DPS. And after all of this, you can simply spam Poisonous Concoction. This setup is known as the Toxic Poison build, where we are going to be dealing insane amount of damage with just the poison effects alone. Our playstyle is structured around specializing in dealing damage almost exclusively by the Plague Barrier, Gas Arrow and the Sniper. And because of our skill tree and the gear, we are going to be deleting trash enemies in split seconds. However, what I really like about this build is the fast speed farming potential, as you can keep moving while dealing insane amount of AoE damage. And then for the rares and bosses, we will use the Plague Barrier and the Snipe. That will turn everything into a dust and make the fight super fun. So if you want to stack as high poison as possible and use one of the highest DPS builds currently in the game, then let's get right into it. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the mercenary, and our ascendancy is the Gambling Legionnaire. Then for the first skill we have the Barrage with the support gem such as the Perpetual Charge and the Premeditation. Then second we get the Herald of the Plague with no support gems. Then next we get the Sniper Mark with Inspiration and Profusion. Then next we have the Poison Burst Arrow with Corrosion, Comorbidity, Deadly Poison and the Chain. Next up we have the Plague Barrier with the Chaos Mastery, Physical Mastery and the Magnified Effect. Next we got the Gas Arrow with the Persistence, Scatter Shot and the Fount of Mana. Next we have the Snipe with the Heft and Venom, Window of Opportunity, Long Shot and the Arcane Tempo. Next we got the Rain of Arrows with the Withering Touch and Inevitable Critical. And finally, for the last ones, we are using the Wind Dancer and the Blink. And for both of them, we don't want to select any support gems. Most of this setup is structured around using the Plague Barrier and the Gas Arrow to delete enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this projectile damage node, until we get to these three, so the Remorseless, Feel No Pain and the Battle Hardened. Next up we go to the right side and get both of these, so Heavy Ammunition and the Blur. Then next let's keep going and we want to take both of these, so Hold Focus and the Master Fletching. Then now let's keep going and again we want to take these three, so Stacking Toxins, Escape Velocity and the Freedom of Movement. Then from here let's now go to the bottom part and we want to get the Wasting and the Fast Acting Toxins. And then from here we can go back all the way from where we began and just unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Adaptive Capability, then second get the Integrated Efficiency, then third we want the Crystalline Potential, and then finally for our last one we want to go with the Implanted Gems. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we want to first of all go to the right side, and then get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get to this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get to the second keystone called the Unstable Energies. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this we have even more passives, which in order you unlock them doesn't really matter. So again it's up to you, and this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium, then third we have the bosses, and then on top of that we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally we have our breach setup. Then now let's move over to our next part, which is the gear. And the weapon of our choice is the Expert Short Bow, and for bonus stats we want increased physical damage, then also add physical damage to attacks, then even more accuracy, reduced attribute requirements, and grant life per every enemy hit. Then also we have an offhand called the Penetrating Quiver, with 100% chance to pierce an enemy, and this is a huge deal which will not only give us more kills, but also increase our damage, which I will explain in just a second. And then for more we want to add physical damage to attacks, increased projectile speed, increased damage with the bow skills, and more to attack speed. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Face Mask with the Evasion and Energy Shield, and for more we got even more increased Evasion and Energy Shield. Then Max Life, more intelligence and resistances like fire and cold. Then for the chest we have the Advanced Studded Vest with a lot of evasion rating, and for more we want even more evasion, more to spirit, which is the best place to get a high spirit count from, and then also we get fire, lightning and chaos resistances. Then for the belt we have the Mail Belt with reduced flask charges, and for more we need armor, max life, max mana, cold and lightning resistance, as well as life per every second. Then for gloves we got the Advanced Doubled Gauntlets with armor and evasion, and for more we want even more evasion and armor. Then max life, increased critical damage bonus, increased attack speed and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the Advanced Embossed Boots with evasion. And for more we want increased movement speed, which again is the main place to get it from. Then also evasion rating and fire and cold resistances. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with the fire resistance. And for more we got more accuracy, increased evasion, max life, leech off physical attack damage as life, and also gain mana per every enemy killed. While then on the second one we have the Topaz Ring with the lightning resistance. And for more we need add physical damage to attacks, max life, more accuracy, lightning resistance, and life regen per every second. And then finally for the amulet we got the Bloodstone Amulet with max life. And for extra stats we need evasion, max energy shield, max life, more to strength, and more percentage of damage taken we now recoup as life. So no matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our main rotation and the highest DPS combo is to first of all mark the enemy, which afterwards we want to use the rain of arrows, or pretty much spam any other skill that can crit. But without the crit, there's no frenzy charges gained, which means less damage if we don't set it up. So then, once we have anywhere from 1 to 3 of these charges, then now we want to consume them with the barrage skill, and then use the snipe, which in return will do massive amounts of damage. But then also, as far as weak enemies go, for them we simply want to run around and keep poisoning them, while then when we hit the plague barrier, it will blow them up even further. This setup is known as the toxic poison build, as we are going to be dealing insane amount of damage with just the poison effects alone. Our playstyle is structured around specializing in dealing damage almost exclusively by spamming the gas and divine arrow, as because of our skill tree and the gear, we are going to be deleting trash enemies in split seconds. However, what I really like about this build is the fast speed farming potential, as you can keep moving while dealing a lot of damage over time. And then for the rares and bosses, we will use the plague barrier and the toxic growth, which will annihilate anyone that stands in our way. If you want to stack as high poison as possible and use one of the highest DPS builds currently in the game, then let's get right into it. So with all of this said, let me show you the build. And for the main class we have chosen to go with the Ranger, and our ascendancy is the Pathfinder. Then for the first skill we have the Gas Arrow with support gems such as the Armor Explosion, Corrosion and Persistence. Then second we got the Toxic Growth with Martial Tempo, Soul Thief and the Concentrated Effect. Then next we got Divine Arrow with Bursting Plague, Comorbidity and the Long Shot. Then next we have the Rain of Arrows with Withering Touch, Maim and the Envenom. Next we are also using the Plague Barrier with Expanse, Magnified Effect and the Chaos Mastery. And then finally for the last one we got the Wind Dancer with Clarity, Cannibalism and Precision. Next up we have our passive skill tree. For most new players this can seem extremely daunting, so let me quickly explain. In very simple terms, every character is granted one passive skill point every time they level up, and are sometimes even granted more for completing certain quests. We have 3 node types, so small nodes, notable nodes and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this evasion node. Then go like this and unlock all of these 3 nodes, so Blur, Eagle Eye and the Honed Instincts. Then now keep going down here and then take the right and unlock this Harness the Elements. This will make that now our poison effects can pop by themselves and do big damage. So then from here we want to keep on stacking the evasion and poison duration and damage. So then we go back to the previous path and keep going down, while on our way getting most of this circle and both of these 2 nodes called the escape velocity and the freedom of movement. And now finally from here we want to keep on going forwards and get these 2 last nodes. And then from here the priority doesn't really matter that much, as you should be already doing huge amount of poison damage. So from here unlock all the other nodes in whatever order you want. Also in the future I'm thinking to maybe invest some points into the Acrobatics keystone, which will give me insane amount of evasion, but I still need to test this theory, so I'll let you know if I make an updated video. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascension setup this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Contagious Contamination, then next get the Overwhelming Toxicity, then now get the Running Assault and then finally the Relentless Pursuit. If we compare both of the Path of Exile games, then POE 2 is much slower, so getting this movement speed in the endgame will make this build even more powerful than it is right now. And to simplify my decision making and so you could easier understand, then we wanted to prioritize the Blur, Honed Instincts, Heavy Ammunition and the Crippling Toxins, as they will give us the biggest poison upgrades to not only damage but duration as well, so we wanted to get them first. And then for the rest we invested into more stacking evasion, more skill effect duration and just more damage, which will make our poison last forever. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Expert Short Bow with a crit chance. And for the extra stats that we want to try to get are increased physical damage, increased accuracy and increased attack speed. And also, as the bow is a one-handed weapon, so we wanted to get the fire quiver, with the addition that adds 3 to 5 more damage to attacks, and for extra stats we want to get things like the physical damage, increased damage with the bow skills, and increased attack speed. Then for the helmet we have the advanced guarded helm with armor and evasion. For extras we want to get more evasion, more maximum life, and reduced attribute requirements. Then for chest we have the expert pathfinder coat with evasion, and for bonus stats get reduced slow on debuffs, evasion rating, max life, and percentage to lightning resistance. Then for the belt we have the fine belt with maximum life and lightning resistance. Then for the gloves we got the advanced section braces with evasion, and for bonus stats get accuracy, max life, and fire and cold resistance. Then for boots we're using the expert laced boots with evasion, and for extras we want to get increased movement speed, even more evasion, and resistances like cold and fire. Then for first ring we got the emerald ring with a lot of accuracy and cold resistance, while on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, maximum life, and more to all attributes. And then finally for the amulet we got the gold amulet with increased rarity to items found, and for bonuses get max life, more to spirit, and more to all attributes. As the game just launched, so this is the starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon will be the most important upgrade, so prioritize any type of flat damage or increased attack speed. And then for defenses, make sure that you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so prioritize evasion, maximum life, and any type of resistance that you can. Also, movement speed on boots is a good option as well. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. And this is actually very straightforward. So for trash and weak enemies, just use the gas and vine arrow, and this will fire toxic arrows on the ground, which will all do poison damage over time, and then even detonate, which will cause you to deal even more damage. Then second, for bosses, rare enemies, or just hard packs, this time we want to spam the toxic growth into a single gas cloud, and use plague barrier as needed or just to detonate the toxic growth. This rotation again will shoot toxins on the ground that explode and deal poison damage, but you don't have to wait for that delay by using the plague barrier, and you need to do all of this into a single gas cloud, which you can create by using the gas arrow and increase your damage even more. And then finally, the rain of arrows and the wind dancer are just meant for utility, so use them depending on the fight.